Welcome to Dark Hunt, where shadows come alive and every story leads you into the unknown. Don't forget to subscribe. Let the hunt begin. The Lost City. Dr. Evelyn Harper was no stranger to adventure. As an archaeologist specializing in lost civilizations, she spent years chasing fragments of myths across jungles, deserts, and mountains. But the map she held now was different. Torn, water-stained, and cryptically marked, it hinted at something untouched by time. The lost city of Eldermore. Legend spoke of Eldermore as a place of immense knowledge and power, a city where shadows moved of their own accord, and the line between life and death blurred. Most dismissed it as folklore, but Evelyn had found the map hidden in the archives of a defunct museum. She couldn't resist its call. With her trusted guide, Marcus, and a small team of researchers, Evelyn set out on a month-long trek into the remote forest of South America. The journey was grueling, the terrain treacherous, yet as they ventured deeper, the forest seemed to close in, its dense canopy blotting out the sun. Strange symbols carved into the bark of ancient trees mirrored the ones on the map. Evelyn felt a mix of excitement and dread.
Dr. Harper,
Marcus called one evening as they made camp.
these symbols, they're warnings.
Evelyn raised an eyebrow.
Warnings.
Marcus nodded, his face grim.
My grandfather told me stories about this place. Eldermore is cursed. Those who enter never return.
Evelyn brushed off his concerns.
Curses are just stories, Marcus. We're here to uncover the truth.
That night, as the fire crackled and the forest whispered around them, Evelyn stared at the map. Unseen eyes seemed to watch from the shadows, but she told herself it was only her imagination. The next morning, they discovered a stone archway concealed beneath vines and moss. It was precisely where the map had led them. The carvings on the arch were intricate, depicting scenes of people bowing to towering amorphous figures. The team hesitated, but Evelyn pressed forward. Beyond the gate, the atmosphere changed. The air grew colder, and a faint hum vibrated through the ground. The path was lined with crumbling statues, their faces eroded into grotesque shapes. Marcus muttered prayers under his breath, clutching a talisman his grandfather had given him.
This is it.
Evelyn whispered, her voice reverent. Hours later, they reached the city. Eldermore sprawled before them, its black stone buildings towering and intact despite the centuries. But there was no sign of life. The streets were eerily quiet, the only sound the faint rustling of leaves. The team spread out to explore. Evelyn's heart raced as she entered what appeared to be a temple. Inside, the walls were covered in glyphs, each one glowing faintly. A massive mural dominated the far wall, depicting a dark figure with outstretched hands, surrounded by swirling shadows. A sudden scream echoed outside. Evelyn ran out to find Marcus kneeling on the ground, his face pale. His flashlight lay shattered beside him. He pointed to a nearby alley, his hand trembling.
Something was there.
He stammered.
It moved. But there was no body, no face, just a shadow.
Evelyn scanned the alley, but it was empty. She tried to calm him down, chalking it up to exhaustion, but Marcus wasn't the only one seeing things. By nightfall, the rest of the team began reporting strange occurrences. Whispers with no source, shadows that seemed to stretch toward them, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Evelyn found herself drawn back to the temple, unable to shake the sense that the glyphs held answers. She traced her fingers over the mural, her touch igniting a faint, pulsing light. The hum in the air grew louder, and the shadows in the room deepened. Words etched themselves into her mind, unbidden and chilling. The shadows are the keepers. The city is their prison. By the second day in Eldermore, 2 team members were missing. Their tents were undisturbed, their belongings intact. Marcus wanted to leave, but Evelyn refused.
We're so close.
She argued.
We can't turn back now.
But even Evelyn couldn't deny the growing unease. The shadows seemed to move with purpose now, slithering across walls and floors. One of the researchers swore he had seen his own shadow detach from him, slinking away into the darkness. That night, Evelyn woke to a faint scratching sound. She lit her lantern and froze. On the wall of her tent, her shadow stood upright, staring at her with empty, hollow eyes. It tilted its head, mimicking her movements, before melting into the ground and disappearing. Desperation gripped the team. They decided to search for their missing members, venturing deeper into the city. The buildings seemed to loom taller, their sharp angles casting unnatural silhouettes. The air grew heavier with each step, and the whispers returned, louder and more distinct. They found the first body near the edge of a massive plaza. The man's face was frozen in terror, his body untouched but lifeless. Around him, the ground was scorched, as though something had burned his shadow away. At the center of the plaza stood a towering obelisk, its surface inscribed with the same glowing glyphs. Evelyn approached it cautiously, feeling the pull of its energy. As she placed her hand on its surface, a voice echoed in her mind. You have come too far. Leave, or join the shadows. Behind her, Marcus screamed. She turned to see a figure emerging from the obelisk's shadow, tall, featureless, and surrounded by writhing darkness. It reached for Marcus, its touch extinguishing the light around him. The survivors ran, but the shadows pursued them relentlessly. One by one, the team fell, their screams cutting through the oppressive silence of the city. Evelyn and Marcus were the only ones left, trapped inside the temple.
We have to destroy it.
Evelyn said, her voice trembling.
The obelisk is the source.
Marcus nodded, though fear shone in his eyes. Together, they returned to the plaza, armed with what little they had left. The obelisk pulsed with dark energy, its glyphs glowing brighter as they approached. Shadows swirled around it, forming twisted shapes that seemed to mock them. As Evelyn prepared to strike the obelisk with a metal rod, the dark figure appeared again. Its voice was a chorus of agony. One must stay. One must keep the shadows contained. Marcus stepped forward, his face resolute.
Go,
He said to Evelyn.
I'll do it.
No.
Evelyn protested, but Marcus pushed her away.
You're the one who can tell the world. Go.
Before she could stop him, Marcus touched the obelisk. The shadows surged toward him, engulfing him completely. The obelisk cracked, its glow fading, and the city fell silent. Evelyn stumbled out of the forest days later, disheveled and haunted. Rescue teams found her near the river, clutching the torn map. She tried to explain what had happened, but her story was dismissed as the ravings of a traumatized mind. She returned to her university, vowing to honor Marcus's sacrifice. But every night, she dreamed of Eldermore, the towering obelisk, the shifting shadows, and the voice that warned her. The shadows wait. They always wait. Months later, a new expedition ventured into the forest, lured by rumors of a lost city. Evelyn's warnings went unheeded, and she knew what awaited them. The shadows of Eldermore were patient, and they were hungry.